Welcome to the Summit Series podcast by Elevation Capital, where we will be speaking to some of India's top business minds on their journeys and the learnings along the way. Our guest today is Siddharth Jain, co founder and CEO of PlaySimple Games. Thank you, Siddharth, for joining us today. I'm super excited to have you on the show.
Thanks, Mayank, for having me here. I'm super excited as well, and I'm privileged as well for being part of this series. We recently had a very big day in our journey as we partnered with MTG for our next stage of growth, and of course, all the new things that we're going to be doing as we move forward. So, looking forward for the next few minutes as we talk about it.
Yeah, hopefully it's going to be an exciting next 40 minutes to an hour. Before we begin, let me share a little bit of background on the company with all of you. Siddharth, or Sid as we all know him, and his co founders, Siddhant, Preeti, and Suraj, set out to build PlaySimple as a gaming studio about 7 years back, post their stints at Zynga. Today, PlaySimple has established itself as the global leader in the free to play mobile word games market and is one of the fastest growing and most exciting gaming companies to emerge out of India. The company's portfolio of games includes successful titles such as daily themed crossword, word trip, word jam, and word wars, with cumulatively over 75 million plus installs and 2 million daily active users. While the company has been built relatively under the hood, PlaySimple received a lot of attention recently when it was acquired by Swedish gaming major MTG for $360 million in cash and stock, plus other performance linked payouts, making it one of the largest exits in the gaming space in India. Elevation partnered with PlaySimple in November 2016 when we invested $3.2 million as part of a $4 million Series A round in the company. Unlike most companies in our portfolio, PlaySimple did not raise subsequent capital till this acquisition. In fact, they have been growing rapidly and have been profitable for a large part of the last 3 years. Just like this fact, the journey with PlaySimple has been one of the many firsts for me, and quite contrary to the way venture funded businesses are usually imagined and built in India. Through this chat with Sid, my attempt would be to uncover some of those nuances, highlight the unique choices and decisions that the team at PlaySimple made in their journey, the pressures and fears they had while making those decisions, so that early stage founders can learn to be more bold while doing things the right way in their journeys. So, Sid, to kick it off, let's start from the very beginning. Maybe from the time all of you were at Zynga and the idea of PlaySimple hadn't even come about. Talk us a little bit through what was your role at Zynga, how large was Zynga back then, what kind of games were you working on when you were there, and then how did you think about setting out on your own journey?
So, first of all, I really love that company. I enjoyed my work there a lot. We were running very large games there, a fighting action RPG game called Mafia War. The other one is a bubble shooter game meant for casual audience called Bubble Safari. Across the team, the four of us, and mostly three because I think Preeti and Suraj were at Zynga and Siddhant was at Walmart. We ran a few other games. That's where we picked up gaming. We started liking and loving gaming. We felt that, hey, this is something that can be done. It's a really nice industry where you have people coming from different facets. You have enough creative folks coming in, you have enough analytical minds coming in, you have mathematicians, business folks, and just generally gamers who are excited about whatever we are working, whatever we're building. You have consumers within your teams. That's what really got us excited. So we were always excited about building things. There were many ideas that we toyed around with. We initially thought of building a dating app. Like any other young single founding team, it starts. So we started thinking about dating. We thought about building a real estate portal. One of the ideas that we really pursued for a long time, this was something that we were pursuing while at Zynga as a side project, was to build a jewelry e-commerce platform. After some time in the market, we realized that, hey, this is going to be really hard. Yeah, and then we got back to Zynga, wanted to build games there, realized that it's going to be very hard and uphill battle to build games out of India, and then ventured out to start Play Simple. That's how I remember it.
Aren't we all glad that you chose to double down on gaming itself? Those were sort of like key decisions. So, as you were thinking about the vision for Play Simple, how was it similar or different to Zynga's vision? Were there similarities in the way of working at Zynga that you really liked and wanted to imbibe into Play Simple? And were there some things that you wanted to do very differently?
So all that I would say is that first of all, I'm very humbled to be compared to Zynga. Back then, when we were very small, it was a David versus Goliath. Play simple, we were out. The vision was to build a predictable business in this otherwise unpredictable industry using data and analytics, where most of the teams and most of the people otherwise felt and understood gaming to be a hits-driven business. Zynga, on the other hand, they were already large. They're one of the largest gaming companies out there. Their vision was to connect the world through games. So the visions were completely, I think, in different horizons. In terms of similarity in the way we approached, I would say we learned a lot about analytics, a lot about product management, a lot about building games. It was more in the tactical side of things where things were similar. That's, I think, yeah, mostly on those lines.
So I recall that most of the work that you were doing at Zynga was around increasing monetization and working on games that were already mature, right? So I'm assuming this when you were starting out, you were fairly confident that you'll crack the LTV to CAC problem for these games, right? And just scale them really, really well, which you did. But as someone who's running a gaming studio, you have to look at like the full life cycle, actually the birth, which is the 0 to 1 journey for those games. Did that seem daunting to you? How did you build confidence that you will be able to do it?
So, in the hindsight, the time at Zynga, I mean, most of the time we were only focused on one metric, was to increase monetization, not as much on LTV to CAC. That focus gave us confidence that hey, if we will go out and do something, if we've been able to increase monetization here, we'll be able to figure out the other problems as well. Now, it was of course harder to deal with multiple different metrics. On one side, you're responsible for increasing monetization, and that's about it. On the other side, you're responsible for increasing monetization, reducing cost, and increasing the life of the player with you. So they are competing metrics. If you move one thing up, the other one doesn't necessarily go the other direction. So there are four founders, and all of us have very, very complementary skills, and that's where us having each other really helped to a large extent. I've heard many stories about, and that hey, 0 to 1 is a really hard and difficult journey, and that's the experience that really matters. But I think it's glamorized more if you have a good team, if you have good partners. It's just like any other thing. For me, like having Suraj, Siddhant, Preeti, and of course you and Karthik was really really helpful as sounding boards, as well as folks who would come and say, okay, hey, this is wrong, or I could say, hey, this is wrong. This is how we should be doing it. Yes, I think that made it really easy for us.
Correct. Cool. Cool. And I think you earlier alluded to the fact that gaming is known as a hits driven business, and you need to bring that sort of like really killer idea of gaming, of a certain game to the market, right? But if you look at a lot of the games that we brought to the market, they are better than what exists already, but they are not completely new ideas, right? So how did you like come across this strategy to build these games, and how did you personally build that confidence that this is the right strategy to basically go after gaming ideas that already do work, but we can do them far far better?
So it goes back to when we started. We built the first game. We put it out there. Actually, even before that, one of the things that were clear to us is that raising capital is something that takes time. We have to go out in the market. People need to believe in your story more than anything else. They need to trust to give you capital. And we had no experience of it from before that. So we had to build something that we were confident of being able to pull off. And that's where I think we came up with a framework. The framework, and I'm happy to share, is very simple. You imitate, you iterate, you innovate, and then you go forward to invent, right? And it's all of these four things as verbs have different horizons. And we wanted to make sure that, hey, if we are left without capital, we should be able to pull it out ourselves. We were fortunate, and even after that, I think this framework allows to focus really well. We felt that there is a gap, there is opportunity, we can still use this framework, and that's how we looked at the games that are out there. We were definitely not the first ones. We were late entrants to the market. We made better versions of them, and players like them.
Awesome. Awesome. Can you repeat those four golden words?
Well, I mean, imitate, iterate, innovate, and then invent.
Excellent. That's awesome. That's the mantra for gaming then. Very interesting. So, given this realization, so what were the capabilities that you focused on building in the organization from day one? And also, I think in gaming, one of the things that one needs to focus on is what not to put any more resources behind, because some things will work, some things will not. How did you decide on that framework on what not to put any resources behind?
Well, now profoundly I can say after spending a lot of time, but back then it was we were just like any other team. We were many times chasing ideas in every direction, and only after making a few mistakes, we felt that, hey, focus is very important, and now narrowing down to a few things, and whatever that is, but you put your full force behind. That is very important. This came after making three pivots during the journey of our company. The other question you had was that, hey, what were the things that you put a lot of focus behind? We put a lot of focus behind building a great analytics backbone for the company. We wanted the culture to be data driven, and we wanted to build driven teams with a lot of autonomy and empowerment, which are driven by making an impact. So it was analytics, the org setup in terms of what kind of people we bring on board, and then to focusing on few things.
Excellent, excellent. So I think on this people dimension, let's double click a little bit on that and switch gears to the organization. Uh, right. I want to talk about how did you go about setting up the company and the culture at PlaySimple. We are a fairly large team now, 200 plus employees. Can you give some context on how do you think about the org structure at a gaming studio? Right, because at any point in time multiple games would be at different stages of their life that are being built. Some would be mature, some would be at the drawing board stage. So how do you build out these teams to work on different games, and are there any some shared services, shared capabilities? Just walk everyone through how you think about org structure at a gaming studio.
Really interesting question, and I can go for hours to talk about it because building any organization, first of all, is very hard, whether it's at a gaming company, whether it's at any other company. Whoever has done that in whichever company, huge respect for everybody there. Now, for us, it's a slightly more interesting challenge because the teams that you deal with at a gaming company are very diverse. You have a good chunk of left brain people and a good chunk of right brain people, where you have a lot of creative folks, all the game designers, all the art and UX folks. And the other side, you have a lot more mathematical and analytical folks with analytics, product management, and engineers. And then you have business folks. To have this diverse group being able to operate together, we felt that the best way would be to have the teams autonomous to a large extent. Everybody had a have a say, and keeping the structure largely flat. The second question about different stages of games and life cycle. One of the other things that we realized at PlaySimple, we've got different games at different stages. Games that are in the creation state, games that are in like product market fit, and then maturity, and then innovation again. We felt that theme composition has a lot to do with getting these products to the next stage. And it is, of course, documented very well in many books and also practicals by many companies. For example, in creative stage, in the early stage, you would have a lot of game designers. Then subsequently, you start bringing the analytics folks once the game is doing well. Then subsequently you will have project managers as well. And also like initially you have a lot more freedom. Gradually you need to sort of control as the business starts becoming larger and larger.
Now it's always a journey. I want to touch about one area on the org side, which has been, I think, especially something that people have not solved for in gaming, is on hiring of talent. How easy or difficult did you find hiring gaming talent over the years? And did your hiring framework evolve as we went through this journey and you saw this is working and this is not working?
So hiring good folks and building good teams is again like building an org is equally difficult. Gaming again, the talent pool is limited because there are only few gaming companies and the culture of gaming is still picking up. It is relatively easier from back then because PlaySimple was a no-name startup that people did not know about. Much easier now. Many more gaming companies have come out. The second part of your question on the hiring framework, how has it evolved over a period of time? Again, a lot of learnings on the way, but initially we kept hiring the people we were like. They were smart and were keen to be in gaming. For example, initially we had, and we still have those people who we hired. We had a radio jockey join us. We had a rocket scientist, an aeronautical engineer, a chemical engineer, electronics engineer, and that also brought different ideas to the games that we built, and it was fun. At times, we also got pressurized because we had to hire people, and we made some decisions to bring people on board. But after bringing them, we realized, hey, it's always best. We have to be 100% sure, even if that requires meeting that person one or two times. You do that. And then, of course, this challenge is going to get even more interesting with pandemic and work from home. And how do you set those teams up, which is a completely different beast altogether.
Cool. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about things that Play Simple did really well and very differently from everyone else. I think you touched upon a few of them in the earlier part of this podcast. I think the first one that really stood out for me was this focus on analytics. So across all companies that I've been part of over the years, I think PlaySimple has been always extremely focused on running this business around metrics that are measured and tracked very closely, and they're very complex. The depth of dashboards that you have is just phenomenal. I remember in every board meeting you could ask any nth level metric and Sid would pull up a dashboard and show that number to us. I think that to me was a DNA that was running in this company. How did you go about instilling this importance for analytics, and why do you think analytics is so important for a gaming business?
So the DNA comes from the founders. When a founding team is two engineers and two product managers, what would you get? so so that was very much in ours as well, and it was one of the things that we knew well enough that we could train the people. It was and still is our bread and butter, and will remain like that. I mean, of course, a significant chunk of credit here in terms of getting influence to build analytics first goes to Zynga because that's where we picked it up. The other one goes to some of the books we read, where one thing that really stuck with me is you can manage only what you can measure. So measurement is very, very important. We conduct boot camps where people are first as they join in analytics or product team. They pick up on a lot of the analytics jargons that we use, and that has allowed us to keep the culture like that.
I think the second area which I felt we excelled in a lot was around monetization, which is what you spoke about, came again from your time spent at Zynga. I think we were always ahead of the curve in discovering new ad formats, discovering new ad networks, optimizing them to work for us, right? And this was across, I guess, both forms of monetization for us, the ads driven and the in app purchases. Could you talk a little bit through how you thought about monetization, how you constantly were able to find these new areas to grow our top line. What was sort of like the input that Sid and the founding team brought in to ensure that we always monetize and we always stay ahead of the market?
One interesting trivia here is that at Zynga, we excelled at monetizing on in-app purchases, which were in the web games. Ad monetization is something as a business we built completely at PlaySimple. It was more around the novelty of the things that were available in that space that got us excited to experiment and try out the other things and build that out. It was quite contrary to our ethos as a founding team because I think there was a lot of pushback initially that hey, we want to not show a lot of ads to our players because that's not right. If you're playing the game and suddenly you throw an ad in between, I think that constant pushback internally allowed us to do it the right way. At least that's how we feel it, where we did not do too much of it. And we leveraged the real estate space that was available in the games. We tried to leverage the gameplay elements to integrate as well. The constant experimentation mindset really helped us test out the new formats, all the new things available. Most of the times on ad monetization, I was like a kid in a candy shop. Okay, let's try this as well. Let's try this as well. Let's try this as well. And we were lucky to be able to have worked with good ad partners who were very supportive, who were equally excited about experimenting and working with us based out of India.
So a lot of people, when the M&A was announced, asked me, "What did PlaySimple do so well?" And I said, "If there is one superpower that this team has, it is how to make money from games, which is something which is very very tough for most people to pull off." So I think, this was the big sort of differentiation that all of you guys were able to do, sitting here in India and building games for the international market. Which actually brings me to the third thing that you did very differently and much better than everyone else, which is to focus on one category, focus on word gaming as a category, go really deep over there, and also focus always on international markets. Right, there were companies building games for India. There was a lot of, I'm sure, temptation at some point in time to test it out, but I remember those were only mere tests, but the focus always remained word gaming, international markets. What was your framework on how to pursue, what to pursue?
Again, in the hindsight, I can say all the answers here, but like hindsight is always 2020, right? So as a startup, you're always short on resources, and you have more ideas than the resources that you've got. So it's always very distracting. So we learned after making few mistakes that hey, we cannot do everything out there. We have to focus on one thing and do that really well. Fortunately for us, we were present in the word gaming category before and realized that it is best to just focus on this, scale it really well. I would like to share one thing that happened. Most of the people that we brought on board, we told them that, hey, we know gaming and we can build this great business out of India. And please join us. It'll be a rocket ship and all the nice things that a founder tells as he's selling his idea to a future colleague. When we raised Series A, we brought a lot of people and we started investing in multiple other categories and other things. Very soon we realized after building one game, we would move on to the building another game. And the team we would have left behind to run that game, they would have figured out how to build a game. They would have not figured out how to run it because they had not done it in the past. So we felt that hey, it is important to do few things. And people had over a period of time, they started losing their belief in Play Simple. That hey, okay, this company is not scaling, and it was very important for us that hey, if we are telling somebody whether it's for future investors, whether it's for employees, whether it's for ourselves, that hey, whatever we are selling to people, whatever Kool-Aid we are selling, is that even something that people like? So it was important for us to really prove. So we chose a goal. We said, okay, hey, we will not do anything else till the time we get to a certain scale in word gaming. Only when we get there, then we will start investing in other categories. There was some bit of disbelief back then, but once we were sure about it, the entire team rallied behind that goal, and right now we are all happy about that decision back in 2018.
Yeah, no, those were the times when some of those critical decisions were taken. There's a fork in the road, right? And I'm glad we all walked down the right path. Lastly, Sid, I wanted to get your thoughts. I'm sure a lot of our listeners are keen to understand your thoughts on fundraise, capital efficiency, value creation, because again, that's one thing that you've done very, very differently compared to most other startups in India. As I had mentioned earlier, the company never raised money after we led the Series A round in 2016 till the M&A. This trajectory is highly unusual, and we did have investors who were keen to explore investing in us. But we were never in need of capital, and we kept saying no. You were very, very clear that we will raise capital only when we really want to, not because just it's coming through the door. How did you think about fundraising and capital utilization and being capital efficient? What was going through your mind when some of these conversations were coming up?
Yeah, so I think it was first of all very tempting as you keep hearing stories to raise capital. Yeah, because you don't know, right? If you're doing it for the first time, you think that that is something that you should do for future proofing the business and the company. That's where I think our advisors really helped to really guide us that hey, if you don't need capital, don't raise it. That's one. The second thing was also both you and Karthik had a very hands-off approach. Once we had decided that hey, this is something that we want to do, you were very supportive. There was no pressure from either of you either that hey, you have to go and raise capital. That's all the remaining half of it. And I think the left from all of that was that hey, business was growing, it was generating cash, so we didn't need cash. We didn't need capital, and all the support was available between Elevation and Chirate in terms of any help that we needed.
I think those were, if you were to look at the business over the last 3.5 years, it was growing nicely and profitable. But the first maybe 18 months of our journey together, the business wasn't growing super fast when we were doing all of these experiments, right? And I remember in those board meetings, the question that was always on the table was that should we be spending money on marketing to grow? But you were super duper calm and clear and say, no, I don't want to spend money till I fix my ROAS, till I fix my LTV to CAC. And once I do that, then I will spend. Now, in hindsight, like you said, 2020, those were the right things to do. But not many founders are able to behave this way. What was your reasoning? What gave you that confidence to do it? That I will not spend till I'm comfortable on the unit economics.
Actually, Mayank, in the hindsight on this one, I think I could have handled those situations better. And that's one. The second thing is that hey, every business is very different. In our business, it is relatively easy to predict versus in the other businesses. In some businesses, you need to spend to understand how the market is responding. You can augment other services or not. But I think in most gaming companies, I think it's very binary. If you're not able to see the ROAS in future, then it doesn't make sense. We just played by that book.
Excellent. You knew the business and you knew what will work here. No, I think some of those conversations were very enlightening for me as well, personally, on really going with the founder's confidence and founder's belief that this is the right time to spend and this is when we should not be spending. So it was enlightening for me as well. Lastly, Sid, I think I and all of us will really appreciate if you could share your views on the partnership with MTG. How did you approach this process? What attracted you towards MTG, and maybe the other way around as well? What attracted them to Play Simple? And looking forward, what should we expect from Play Simple in the next 4 to 5 years? What's on tap for you guys?
A lot of questions. But let me try to see if I can answer these ones. So I think I'll go in the order of events on how the process and everything, and then probably how and what to expect in future. So we were actively, I think, until a year ago, we were not looking for a partner or an exit. I think COVID definitely changed a lot of our views on how we want to operate and run this business. I think honestly, the market really shaped it because gaming industry turned out to be it was a consolidating market, and gaming companies were acquisitive. So we had few companies who were interested in pursuing Play Simple. Most of the people think that a gaming and Play Simple grew really well during the last year, and that made us pursue a transaction like this. But I think our growth was, in terms of year-on-year growth, was lesser in compared to the previous years because we felt that the productivity and the efficiency came down, and we were also slightly conservative because we didn't know. It's a very different time than usual to predict. So that was what led us to sort of pursue this path. On partners and partnership with MTG, we were fortunate to meet them once during this pandemic. Very excited to work along with Maria and Aunt there. Very supportive, very warm, very open. They have this culture of a family of entrepreneurs where there are multiple gaming companies. We felt and we feel that we will be able to reach out uh, to folks at InnoGames in Germany, folks at Hutch in London, if we are facing a problem, and likewise, we'll be able to share with like-minded founders and teams that have built some portions that we don't have, and we can share the pieces that we have to build the entire MTG group into a much larger. And in future, we feel that it's still day zero at Play Simple, and it's almost like a restart where we are looking forward to build Play Simple into $500 million division under MTG over the next few years. Yeah, and we continue to build games. We might enter into Indian market. We look at other genres and possibly other categories.
Awesome. I'm sure you'll have your hands full with building out Play Simple to that scale. But just to end it, what are you planning to do on the personal side? What does Sid do now?
I spend more time with my family. So I have a little one. I spend more time with him. Over the last year, I have not had the time to actually, because of the transaction, I've not had the time to spend with our teams as much. So I would be spending a lot of time with our people here. So how each one of them as leaders can build their own respective franchises or studios into as large as Play Simple has become. Together, each of those franchises can add significant value to Play Simple becoming larger. That's where I would spend more time and probably hanging out with you if you have some time.
Yes, I think once this pandemic is a little easier, our drink is pending. It's quite surreal that we went through such an intense 12 months, but just couldn't meet. But we will meet soon. Thank you once again, Sid, for coming on to the Summit series. It's been a pleasure and privilege for me and all of us at Elevation to be your partner on this amazing journey. I personally have learned a lot from this association, and we all wish you the very best in the years ahead.
Thank you, Mayank. The privilege has been for all of us at Play Simple as well. I found a really good friend and mentor in you, and look forward for this partnership in future as well.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.